So we are joined by Pavol Lupták, co-founder of the Institute of Crypto Anarchy and here Paraleni Police in both Prague and Bratislava. Well, you are of course co-organizer of the here Optout conference. What do you say so far? How is it?
I really like it. It was very difficult to organize this event. Like especially this year, well, in organization there were there are 85 people who participate in organization. So we have maybe 2 or 3 full-time people who are paid for the organization because they dedicate all their time to the organization. But 80 people do that just for free, like volunteers.
And you see, when everyone just helps out and does the small little part here, even if it's just the registration or selling T-shirts or all that, that's all very important tasks that need to be done.
Yeah.
So having the volunteers is absolutely something. How did you get this reaction here from a anarchist community? How was the voluntary aspect on this?
Yeah. So we try to be like a voluntaristic community in Polis. We are trying all the time to have no hierarchy, to be like a peer-to-peer society, but unfortunately it's not possible. So we have some leaders. We have some, I'm not saying like bosses, but we have some leaders, and they're just saying what to do. Yeah. So we have some like a very flat hierarchy.
And it all starts with goals, though. As long as the leaders support the goals, the organization, we're all on the same page, it works out, right?
Yeah.
So it's important to have the values, the goals of the organization, which I think you guys do, starting early and everything.
HCPP is, by the way, very carefully planned event. So we usually try to organize it 7-8 months before the event. Like quite early when we started to invite the first speakers. And usually every year I used to write something what is called like HCPP Manifesto. This HCPP Manifesto is Optout Manifesto, and we decided to focus on the topic of opting out. It's caused by the fact that many of us, I'm one of them, but many of us, we decided to, in addition to using crypto technologies to gain or to achieve more freedom, we decided to use also different, how to say, state hacks or state loopholes to get more freedom. And this is exactly, so for example, me personally, I became Panamanian resident now. I decided to give up my residency and all my duties in the European Union. And not only that, we are another 5 people just in Bratislava who decided to get this Panamanian residency. And we use the thing is that we realized that there is no ideal, like a free country in the world, but there are a lot of different countries and they compete each other for their citizens, for their residents.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is that when you are willing to be global and when you're willing to be flexible, global and flexible, you can achieve like completely new kind both economic and personal freedom. And this is exactly what we are trying to show here at the Opt-out, that that there are still a lot of possibilities how you can achieve more freedom, not only using cryptocurrencies, but using your right to choose where you want to live, where you want to have where you want to have company, for example, and where you want to have like health insurance. So that's why we decided to call it like Opta. It's quite a unique concept, I think.
I think that's a really good idea because a lot of people get stuck where they live.
Yeah.
I see all the time after a hurricane blows through or a natural disaster, they're like, "We're gonna rebuild." I'm like, "Why are you doing that? Why don't you move somewhere nice?" And it's a classic Sam Kinison joke, but he was talking about Africa. He was like, he screamed a lot. I won't scream, but he said, "Why don't you move to where the food is? If you can't grow food there, why don't you move?" And if privacy is important to you, if cryptocurrency rights are important to you, whatever is your most important thing, if you have to physically move somewhere to do it, it might make you happier. It might make you more fulfilled, give you the freedom to get to the next level, the next step. And a lot of people, because of maybe family or job or just stuck in their ways, can't seem to even get out of their hometown, let alone their state or even their country out into the world like you've done.
It's interesting is that it's putting if it would need them to go outside their comfort zone, where in order to be able to move, moving takes them out of the comfort zone, but they're out of their comfort zone in the situation where there's not enough food. So it's kind of like
Or people that you
sacrifice.
disagree with politically, or
Yeah.
laws change and you don't want to be there anymore. All of
Yeah.
these things.
Like, especially in my situation, I can describe you my situation. In Slovakia 2 years ago, very bad crypto legislation was approved. I mean, especially regarding taxation of crypto. So, for example, in Slovakia, you have to tax profits from your crypto, but if you're in loss from your crypto, you cannot use it as your expense. And so this is like extremely unfair, I think.
Yeah.
And for if you're like a Slovak resident, it doesn't make sense at all to use crypto, because it doesn't make it usually it's so big disadvantage for companies or for people to use it, that it was probably the one of the main reason why I decided, okay guys, I'm not willing to accept this. And I think especially if you use crypto a lot, I completely switched to crypto maybe 5 years ago. If you use crypto a lot, I think it's extremely important to have a good tax residency or good permanent residency. For example, in my situation, just because I'm perpetual traveler, I'm traveling all the time, and there is no country where I live more than half year. Legally, I have no tax residency, and legally, I don't pay any taxes.
Well, and I've heard of a lot of tax situations where maybe if Bitcoin goes up to $1 million and then it goes back to $100,000, you're still on the hook for the $1 million. And that is terrifying because you don't have the money. It's gone. You lost it. Nobody's good at selling the top here. We're not, fortune tellers or whatever you have to be to sell the top. But yeah, to have that added pain would make you think twice about investing in anything, think you twice about experimenting with any new economy, which is going to be very limiting and definitely keep you in your box. No freedom there.
So yeah, like for example, I strongly recommend you to use this setup, like I use in my situation, because I can say I really feel free, and you can be quite opportunistic. You can just like choose benefits of privileges of multiple countries and boycott or ignore the disadvantages or duties of some other countries. So
you can also get great weather if you plan it right.
yeah, but you may have a problem if you're like a U.S. citizen, because if you're a U.S. citizen, you are basically like tax slave.
Yeah, government property. Yeah.
So, is immigration not an issue for you then? So, obviously, Traven talks a lot about his difficulties, and as you kind of float around from different countries, is that not like a bit of a problem in certain countries, because they think, oh, is this person? Are you going to stay, or are you actually going to go?
It strongly depends. It strongly depends on country, and it strongly depends where you're from exactly. So, for example, in Panama, there is like something like Panamanian friendly list, and there are a lot of European countries, including US, including Canada, and it means that if you are from one of these countries, you are privileged. You are privileged in some way. It means that you can ask for permanent Panamanian residency for infinite period. For example, if you are from Venezuela, Colombia, Nicaragua, all these countries, you get it just for 2 years, for example, or 3 years. So one of the things is that, especially like people from Europe and the US, they are positively discriminated in Panama. So this is the thing, and also you can ask for the passport. It's 5 years, but for example, my country doesn't allow me to have two citizenships. So this may be a problem. And also in situation when you're like a U.S. citizen, you have a problem because you have a duty to or you're obligated to submit your tax declaration every year, and it doesn't matter where you live, basically. So
yeah, I've seen that because I wanted to move to Amsterdam, and the idea there would be I would get the privilege of paying EU taxes and US taxes. So already not having that much money, it would be doubly bad for me. I think the only way out, I've heard Roger Ver bought citizenship from St. Kitts, and after he bought it, they doubled it or tripled it because they figured out there was a bunch more crypto people coming that might have that money. But obviously, I think it was at least $500,000, $1 million, $1.5 million, something. It was a lot of money. So
there
for
are
everybody.
at least two crypto anarchists who are like a ex-U.S. citizen or stateless people. One of them is here in the Congress. His nickname is Exiled Surfer. Maybe.
Yeah, we actually had him right here on the show. Yeah, we talked.
So he's basically, how to say, like broken U.S. citizen because his passport was remotely revoked by U.S. government. So he cannot ask to renew his passport basically, and also so he's stuck in Austria. Can
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah. Anyway, and I have another friend, and he's also a friend of this guy, Mike Gulski. Mike Gulski is completely like a stateless person. 15 years ago, probably, he decided to give up his U.S. citizenship because he didn't want to contribute by his taxes to U.S. military system. So this was his decision, and now he's like a stateless person with the traveling document of Slovakia. So he basically can travel inside of Schengen, but if he wants to travel out of Schengen, he needs to ask for visa. So it's definitely possible. So my recommendation, if you're like a U.S. citizen, my recommendation is just to try to find out if someone of your like ancestors, like grandparents, are from Europe, and probably some of them are definitely from Europe. Like white, so I'm pretty sure, and use it to get the citizenship of European Union. Then, when you get your European passport, revoke your U.S. citizenship, and don't have don't have EU residency, because EU residency means a lot of duties. Just have European passport, which means a lot of privileges, and ask for Panamanian residency. So this is the best combination. So
you just spoke a bit about Schengen. What exactly is that? Could you elaborate a bit?
Schengen. I mean Schengen. All countries which signed like a Schengen agreement, like of no borders. So like Schengen doesn't mean European Union. It's like different countries are in Schengen, different in European. Like for example, Switzerland is not in the European Union, but it's in Schengen, as I know. Yeah, for example.
And what are the advantages of living in these countries or traveling through these countries?
Like, for example, in my situation, this is super cool. In my situation, like, I have no residency in European Union, so I have no duties to any European government. So I don't need to pay taxes here. I don't need to pay any healthcare insurance, social, anything. So, but but I have a European passport. So I can stay here unlimited amount of time. I can do anything I want here without the resident in European Union. And because I have the Panamanian residency, I can stay also unlimited period in Panama, and also it is accepted by many South American countries. So the thing is that instead of one home, I have two homes, which is pretty cool. And I can, for example, like if you want to buy like a flight tickets to Panama or to South American country, very often they check if you have the return flight tickets. For example, but I don't need to buy return flight tickets because I have home, like in Europe I'm citizen, in Panama and South America I'm resident. So this is cool. So I strongly recommend it to use this setup.
And when I spoke to you at the press conference, you mentioned about the how you get around the data and mobile issue. Was it yourself? Google File?
Yeah. So another thing is that if you want to be like a global citizen, you have to use global services. So for example, I use global healthcare insurance. It's a US company for perpetual travelers. The name of this company, I'm not sure if I can tell it, or it's a safety thing, but there are a lot of such companies. You can basically you can choose many companies. And I also use it's called Google Fi. It's now they have a new program. When you're a group of 4 people, for $45 monthly, You can have unlimited calls, unlimited text messages, unlimited data in all countries in the world. Okay, except of Cuba, except of North Korea, like maybe
Sure,
Iran.
sure.
Yeah. So this is super cool because you don't need to buy like local SIM card or something like that. So even in these days, we have technologies and we have ways how you can. The problem is that if you have residency in one country, you are basically stuck in the given country. You have to be, for example, in the European Union, you have to be the customer of the oligopoly of healthcare insurance companies. You have to be the customer of the monopoly, government monopoly of social insurance. And you can choose. But if you just give up your residency, you can choose from the global market of many companies. So there is it's a bigger free market, so there is a pressure for like a more high quality and cheaper services. So and the people should benefit from that. So
Yeah. And absolutely here, the conference so far with the title of opt-in is absolutely fitting in this theme. Do you already know for next year, HCPP 2020, what will be the motto and what can we think about?
I don't know yet, but I think in January, the latest in February, we will definitely know the I don't know yet, but
Opting into Bitcoin and other free currencies.
probably, yeah. But so yeah, but the thing is that this is not for everyone. Like I'm personally very oversensitive to my freedom when some government tells me what to do or what to pay or something like that. I really don't like it. I'm willing to do a lot of things because I want to, not because I have to. And this is one of my biggest problem. And that's also because I'm so oversensitive about these things. That was the reason why I started this opt-out process in my life a few years ago.
And are there any other tools that you could recommend for anyone who wants to be a worldwide, traveler, and live day by day?
Definitely crypto.
Yeah.
Crypto is like the best global tool. Also, like check local crypto exchanges. For example, in South America, in many countries, crypto exchanges are prohibited. Like for example, in Colombia, when something is prohibited in Colombia, it means nothing. Like everybody uses it usually. So a lot of people they still use like local bitcoins, for example. Um, in most countries, you can find like 8 crypto ATM machines. This is super cool. So even if you are completely on crypto, you are still able to change it to cash. So this what I recommend you. I don't know. So use like global healthcare insurance. Use crypto everywhere when it's possible. This is pretty cool in Prague, for example, because Prague is probably the top crypto city. In Prague, the biggest e-shop, which is called Alza. Alza, it's something like check Amazon or check eBay. Like everybody buys there, and they are big, and they sell practically everything, and they accept crypto. Okay, and also the biggest food delivery chain in Prague also accept crypto, which means that you can live a very comfortable life in Prague without without using fiat, just with the crypto completely. So Prague is a comfortable place if you want to use crypto only.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, Pavol.
Okay,
And not
thank you.
just for joining us here in this conversation, but also, of course, for organizing this great
Yes,
event.
definitely.
Okay. Thank you a lot,
And,
guys.
also, to viewers, there is it's a non-profit organization, isn't it?
Yeah, it's non-profit organization.
Yeah. So there's like if you want to donate, then go to the site and yeah.
What is the website?
Website of the
Paraleni Polis. Yeah.
like the website hcpp.cz.
Yep.
And like this year it's like optout.hcpp.cz.
Cool.
Yeah, and I hope there are some QR code for donation,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I hope so.
I was definitely
Okay.
seeing them scattered about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, thank you a lot for invitation, and now I have to work.
Awesome. Thanks very
Okay,
much.
Thanks so
you.
much, Paul.
Bye, Pavol.